Hello and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts, the podcast that smartly brings you the spooky and the spiritual. I'm your happily haunted host, Jennifer, a spirit medium and a studious collector of ghost stories. Tonight, we're going to get darkly academic. But don't worry, there won't be a quiz at the end. We're headed to creepy campuses to hear tales of ghostly encounters. No studying required. But you may want to memorize where the exits are in case you get too spooked. And as always, later on, I have a new in-studio spirit reading to share with you, followed by a message from the spirits. Let's gather around the séance table and see who wants to speak. And do they want to speak to you, dear listener? So thank you for being here with me this evening. But first, the spooky. Grab your notebooks and mugwort. The university ghosts are ready to give you a tour of the campus right now. This happened to me back in the fall of 1988. It was my second year of college, and I needed some extra money, so I was working at the central service desk in Wickerson Hall at the University of North Dakota. The unique thing about Wickerson was the tunnels that connected each dorm to the cafeteria. North Dakota is cold in the winter. I lived in West Hall, only a short walk through the tunnels from the service desk. The one drawback to this job was that once a month, you had to work the graveyard shift from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. alone. Well, I was working the graveyard shift one night during finals week. It was a very cold night, and the wind was howling outside. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard a shout from the direction of the West Hall tunnel. Two guys came running out of the tunnel, shouting for me to call the police. I asked them why, and they told me they had just seen a girl with no legs floating up the tunnel. I must have looked at them funny because one of them said, "All right then, come with us, we'll show you." Well, I wasn't worried about them because I knew them from West Hall. So I locked up and the three of us walked out into the tunnel. When we first entered the tunnel, I got a creepy feeling that I couldn't shake. I kept thinking these guys are just trying to scare you, but that didn't help. As we walked down the tunnel towards the intersection with the West Hall tunnel, I felt the hair on my arms stand up. I looked at my companions, and they both had expressions mixed with fear and curiosity. When we turned the corner, I saw her. It was a young woman, and she had short dark hair and was wearing what looked like a nightshirt. She was semi-transparent and didn't appear to have any legs. We watched her for what seemed like a whole minute, but she didn't seem to notice us. She seemed lost to me and very frightened. After a little while, she simply vanished. Needless to say, we ran back to Wickerson to talk about what happened. We all agreed we had seen it, but had no idea what or who she was. We decided not to tell anyone about it, since it could make us look a little silly. I quit that job a week later, but not because of the ghost. About a week later, I was going through some old student newspapers looking for information on a campus student group when I came across an article about a girl who had frozen to death on campus in December of 1962. It seems that before the tunnels were built, it was quite common for girls from West Hall, which was then a female dorm, to run from the back door over to Wickerson. We've all heard stories about people who'd go out in those -70 whiteout conditions and freeze to death after getting disoriented. According to the newspaper account, it had happened to this girl. She had died only 60 feet from the dorm, very near the area where my companions and I had seen the ghost disappear. The story did not say what time she died, but the police report that I dug up later stated that the last person who saw her alive was at about 2 a.m. I took the newspaper article to my director of housing. I was working for him at the time and we had a good rapport. After he had read it, I told him what I had seen the year before. He told me that this was the 4th time he had heard a story such as mine. Others have seen the ghost during my time at the university, and I did hear about some guys who went down there with a Ouija board, and they got really freaked out. But that's another story. I went to Flagler College in St. Augustine for a while in 2007. As some may know, the dorms were once a famous hotel that had had a checkered past. I stayed on the 3rd floor in room 300. The 3rd floor was the workers' floor, where the employees would live during their work at the hotel. I shared my room with 2 other girls who never seemed to experience things the way I did. But I know what I experienced was real. At night, when we were all quiet and in bed, I would hear a typewriter like an old Underwood. It would type for about an hour between midnight and 1 a.m. The weird thing was the sound seemed to move throughout the room, and the smell of burning tobacco would travel along with it. That occurred the entire semester, and while it never interfered with us, it was still enough to give me a start in the beginning. We had a bathroom in the room, which was rare as many girls on the floor had to use the community shower. But every couple of weeks, I would be in there when my roommates had gone to class, and the door sounded as if it opened and closed. The shower had a glass door you could see out of, so I knew no one had entered. When you could hear the door close, I would also hear a toolbox set on the floor, and a man groan as if he was getting on his knees. The next thing would be the whistling. It was always the same tune, very upbeat, just like something you would whistle while you were working. These 2 experiences seemed residual. The only thing that scared me into shivers was a morning in November when I was showering and the door seemed to slam, and suddenly the light burned out. I was petrified. I jumped out of the shower, ran the 12 feet or so to the door, and ran out in my towel. I quickly threw on a t-shirt and ran outside to the rotunda, where all the lights were on, and no one seemed concerned about a power outage. It never happened again, but that was enough for me. If you want a semi-active night, go sleep in room 300 in Ponce Hall. When I was a freshman in college, I had what is to this day the most terrifying experience of my life. One night, I'd been hanging out with friends until around 1 a.m. when I decided it was finally time to get ready for bed. I lived in the freshman dorm with long hallways of bedrooms, and the common shared bathrooms were in the middle of each floor. I walked into our floor's bathroom and started getting ready for bed, brushing my teeth, washing my face. And while washing my face, I instantaneously had the wind knocked out of me, and I struggled to catch my breath. Nothing physically hit me, but I felt such a tremendously overwhelming feeling of evil behind me that I literally was paralyzed with fear. I couldn't move. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. I remember the pressure in the room changing and my ears popping. I knew that something was behind me in that room. And I swear to you, I knew that if I looked into the mirror to see what was behind me, I probably would have lost my mind. It was that scary. Once I could move and breathe again, I sprinted down the hall and into my room, literally hiding under my covers until I could finally fall asleep quite some time later. Approximately 6 or 7 years later, I was talking with another man who graduated from that same college 3 years after I did. The subject of ghosts came up, and he asked me if I had any of my own stories. When I told him of my experience in the dorm, he told me that the professor we had both worked for had told him years earlier that the campus had been struggling with an evil presence at the same time I had my experience. He also said that our professor had an identical experience to my own in his office late one evening. I had never felt evil like that before, nor have I ever felt as scared in my entire life. Part of me wonders what I would have seen had I looked up into the mirror, but I am mostly thankful that I hadn't looked. Are you enjoying your ghostly visit? If so, please follow, like, comment, and share. The ghosts may be talkative, but they are lousy at marketing, so every click helps. Tell your friends, and please leave a kind review so that others might join us. The spirits and I thank you. Welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. My guest this evening is Allison. Allison, welcome to the podcast and your reading. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today. We have a loud family. They like to talk.
we know this. the last time we met, my family talked your ear off. So yeah.
Well, clearing the space and grounding, and I'm like, okay, who wants to come in? And it's like being in a loud dinner party. But initial impressions I'm getting, I've got my notes. There's talk of honor and remembrance, and then there's talk of there's this energy coming in of extra responsibility. I don't know if you're entering that phase in your life where you feel like you're on the brink of something else. Yeah, I'll just start there. So what do you think of those? Right, because that's not enough.
Yeah.
What do you think of those vibes?
Definitely a lot of those vibes going on. The responsibility thing, like, yeah, I took on a lot of extra responsibility at work this past year, both in my actual job, and then I'm involved in my company's diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So yes, there's definitely been a lot of extra this past year, and especially this past month has been doubly busy. But the honoring thing, God, I'm hoping that's Mark. I really am.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Your cousin. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah.
There's a sense of, from multiple people in your family, wanting to support you. They're saying that you could have a bit of a self-critical mind, and and that it's not helping, and they want to support you so much. I wrote down, I've got this big quote, "You can do it." And then someone is saying, "You are so punk rock."
That's Mark.
Mm-hmm. Like that was
totally
his
Mark.
contribution to the conversation.
Yeah.
You are so punk rock. You've got this. You absolutely got this. Here are some impressions that I was getting in my pre-session. Well, let's start with your grandfather. He okay, I'm saying grandfather, but I'm not sure. Elder man, boisterous, gestured with his hands.
It's probably my grandpa Ted.
Okay. Do you know if he ever smoked cigars with his friends?
He smoked for years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He smoked for years. He died from oral pharyngeal cancer from smoking.
Goodness. Okay. Yeah. He's like, oh my gosh. He's like, it's worth it. That is not something that I should be quoted on, or he should be quoted on, but that's his opinion.
Oh my God, that's too funny.
Did he have a sense of humor too? Because he's like, yeah. Bonfires? Do you have any memories of bonfires? Did you do bonfires in your past?
It's probably campfires.
Campfires.
Yeah, as a kid, Mark and I, we would go on big camping trips together. There was a big week-long family camping trip that was me and my grandparents, his brother and their grandparents, which his grandfather was my grandmother's older brother. So we're second cousins.
Okay.
The reason I picked this day to meet was because one of my earliest memories with Mark was at a family reunion, and it was held on the summer solstice, and there was a pit barbecue. So there's that same sort of bonfire kind of aspect of a pit barbecue. So it could be that as well.
You're troublemakers, aren't you? Did you two, when you were a little older, did you guys like sneak beer and stuff?
I didn't. I was not the beer sneaker. No.
He was the beer sneaker.
He was the beer sneaker.
For the record, because I'm seeing beer cans, and camping, usually think of woods and stuff. I'm wondering if at any point he's showing me more of like a open space, grass, and maybe like sitting on what maybe used to be a barrier, like concrete blocks, nothing really pronounced.
Yeah.
What is this?
So the place where we went camping was very wooded. But there was a series of trails we used to go hiking, and lots of hiking on this camping trip. And it's very close to the Pacific Crest Trail. So we actually hike part of the Pacific Crest Trail when we were up there. But one of the trails we went through, the Low Trail, went past an old homestead that had been burnt down.
Okay.
And we used to run around and, play in the burnt out rubble. And yeah, there was a low wall that you would sit on that was stone. And we used to run around there and just cause trouble. I'm pretty sure the parks has actually removed this old burnt out homestead by now. I think they replaced it with a water tank. It was part of the good trouble that we used to get into.
Yeah. With it comes this open sense of freedom and lightheartedness. Like this, this is the good, and I think this in a way, it represents him, it represents you, and it represents just how he sees you and how he wants to encourage you to be, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, what was coming through with him was a really loud, like, bass line of music. I don't know if he liked loud like music or drums.
The last time that I saw Mark was actually at one of my roller derby bouts, and lots of music. That's a loud, good time, and yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I definitely see that connection.
Okay, that completely makes sense. Oh yeah. I think this has to do with jokes about cheap beer.
Yeah, that's probably the roller derby.
Okay. Did you guys ever go swimming?
Yeah, the water was freezing cold, but we certainly
that
went
was
in
my
it.
next question, because my hands went numb. And I'm like, who is going swimming in this cold water?
All of us.
You are tough. I'd be like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. I mean, it was snow melt in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And yeah, the spot where we went camping, the favorite two camp spots that our family usually got were right next to this spot. There was like a river that ran through the campground, and the park service had built sort of like a partial rock dam. And so they did it for fishing. So there'd be like this pool of water where you could go fishing. But it was also always impossible to catch trout there because they didn't bite. So we would go swimming in it. And yeah, it was freezing cold.
Was there jumping off activities?
Jumping off rocks, yeah.
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 He was showing me that. Is there anything specific you wanted to ask, or are there other people today? Like, I think your grandmother just kind of wanted to elbow in a little bit to give his PSA about cigars.
That's so funny. Mark was definitely the big person that I wanted to talk to. I was curious if Grandpa was going to show up.
Interesting.
I prepared myself better this time. The last time we met, I kind of went into it blind and just sort of like had a busy day and just jumped into the call and not really prepared myself. So this time I prepared myself, and I sent out some messages to my family. So it's just really nice to know that Ted's there and that smoking was worth it. I'm never going to forget that one. I'm going to put that on a cross stitch.
Right. I think that the experiences that he had, the camaraderie I'm feeling there, and the joy of partaking in life. I feel like, in a way, that's his motto to impart to you, that it's like, oh my gosh, live.
That's awesome. Yeah. He was really involved in both the Elks Lodge and a sportsman's club. And both of those are situations where, he and the guys would sit around and smoke and have a good time.
Yeah. Camaraderie is a big thing for him, and connecting with people and community. I mean, in a way, it comes down to community, right? Because you're there for each other and you're creating those bonds. It just seems really important. And oh gosh, now he's like, yeah, and people don't value that nowadays.
Okay, good.
It's like, that's not true. We connect in different ways. We have social media, and it's not perfect, but I mean, look at us. Here we are connecting over faulty technology, but here we are doing it. Right?
Yeah.
I think that
the initial message that came flooding in was that they see you and they know the burden of responsibility. Don't let the self-criticism eke its way in with that. Just that you're not good enough or not qualified, or, oh my God, what did I do? Or, and with that, they're saying it's okay to take a break. We don't have to be on all the time, and make sure that you take that downtime for yourself. Are you one of those people like you sit down and you're like, oh yeah, and then suddenly you're thinking of the 1,000 things you could be doing?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, make sure that you do create that fun time for yourself, and you do take that downtime, because we need to replenish, right? We need to recharge, and it's very important. It's very important. But yeah, you're punk rock. Well, I do have some messages for you.
Okay.
Outside of all the other ones that they want to.
My whole family chat in your ear off.
Yeah. Okay. So we have minimize unnecessary strife. So if there's just some annoying, you gotta tune it out. If it's in your job or something like that. Just minimize unnecessary strife. Enjoy and celebrate your accomplishments. Use your emotions and imagination to guide and create your life. So that's the energy that you're putting in, not that analytical, brilliant brain of yours. It's your heart and your intuition and your imagination. Okay. So does that make sense? Does that resonate for you right now?
Yeah, it does.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Yeah.
And before we go, I would love to ask you if you have a personal ghost story that you would like to share today.
I think I do.
Listener ghost story.
So it was way back in the mid-1990s. I was just getting started at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I was going there for school. And before school started, we had a orientation program called Week of Welcome, or WOW. And they would take us out in big groups of incoming freshmen and transfer students. And your group would just go exploring all over the city and the county and the university, and you'd learn like where the great places were to go eat, where the great places were to go relax, where shopping was, and all this sort of fun stuff. Well, my WOW counselor, a very good friend of mine named Steve, we're still friends today, was very unconventional. He signed us up for some activities that we were not supposed to be doing. And one of them was we were going to actually break into and explore a dilapidated building that had previously been a care home, for lack of a better term, for children. It was an institution where children with developmental disabilities and psychological disorders were placed when their families couldn't manage them. This care home actually closed in the early 80s and had been operational for decades before that. The building was constructed in the 1940s, I think. It had been a tuberculosis hospital at one point. And yeah, it had gone through a lot of different things. It was called Sunny Acres, and it's a beautiful building. It was designed by the same people that designed Ghirardelli Square in San Francisco. It's brick, and just the architecture is gorgeous. But when you drive up there, it's up on a hillside, like so creepy. Big brick building up on a hillside behind a hospital. Like it could not be more creepy. And they were like, okay, we're going to go inside. We're going to explore this old building. And there's all these stories about, horrible things that happened in this building. The county had done a very good job of boarding up the doors and windows. They knew the teenagers were coming and they were keeping us out. So we walked around to the back side of the building and found a break in the fence and got onto the playground. And there wasn't really any playground equipment left, but there was a blacktop and a basketball court. So there were about 60 of us because we combined groups with another WoW troop. And we sat in a big circle and started telling ghost stories. And we're having a good time going around, telling our stories. And then all of a sudden, from off to my left, I hear someone scream. And now there had been a lot of screaming because we're telling ghost stories and scaring each other. But this was different. This was someone who was legitimately scared. And so as I'm looking over, I hear another person scream, and I realize that a few people down from me, there's two people that are like, pushed over. They're like sitting forward over their knees. And then the person next to that person pushes forward. And then the next person pushes forward. And then I got pushed forward. It was terrifying. Like, you saw it coming, and like there was no one there. There was no one behind them pushing them. And yet when it got to me, it was like the worst game of duck, duck, goose ever. Like I felt these two hands very forcefully push me forward at my shoulders. And that's it. We were done. There was about 7 of us, I think, that got pushed forward like that. And we just got up and we left. We went back to the cars. We're like, nope, we're done. We're done. And everyone thought we were faking. And it was absolutely terrifying. And I don't know. I'm sure it was the kids that had been at that location, because a lot of children died in that building, and we were on their playground, and they probably didn't appreciate that we were telling ghost stories and making a lot of noise, or maybe they just wanted to mess with us because they were kids and that's what kids do. But yeah, that was definitely one of the experiences in my life that definitely made me realize that there's something beyond this, because there was no one there.
Yeah.
There was no one standing behind them.
Wow, that is so incredibly creepy.
It was terrifying.
And there's something to creating that mood and telling ghost stories that pulls the energy in too. So wow. Just wow.
Yeah.
Would you like a free spirit reading with me and record your reading for the podcast? Sign up for your chance to be selected by visiting italktoghosts.com/guest. And as an added bonus, if you don't want to leave your reading up to chance, I'll let you in on a secret. There's a discount offer to book a private session with me, so you can book a date and time for certain. Visit italktoghosts.com/guest for more details. I can't wait to meet you. Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. Thank you for joining me around my séance table this evening. I have a message from the spirits for someone listening to the podcast. So again, thank you so much for being here. Tonight, I have my tarot cards with me. Now, this is a deck that I have cleansed and dedicated for spirit work. And when I use these cards to help with spirit communication, I don't shuffle them. I create the space to just let my hand be guided as to who would like to speak to me this evening. Okay. Chariot. This was someone who had hardships and difficulties in life. Again. Nine of Wands. Lots of burdens. The cards really do start to emphasize a pattern. Emperor. Okay. This is someone's husband-father energy coming in. Okay. What would he like to share with me this evening? He's showing me that he really helped you as his son learn how to ride a bike. You were really active outside. And later on, he built you like a bike ramp. It was this whole summer project, and you still think about it so fondly to this day, how he took the time and really listened to you and helped you build this bike ramp for you and your friends for the driveway. You guys thought it was the neatest thing. It wasn't big and grandiose, but the fact that he took the time to make this for you, looking back now, you are just so very touched about how attentive he was as a father. He was a real logical man, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't emotionally available. You know what I mean? And his message for you tonight is to really be in touch with your emotions and let them guide you. What are your passions? What makes life worth living to you? Embrace that. And he's also giving me messages of, he's also telling me that you're really good at seeing the potential in things when other people might not see it. So you might face some discouragement in life, but don't listen to that. Follow your heart. Absolutely follow your heart and do what you love. Do what makes your heart light up inside and makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. Follow that. And he just wants to encourage that so much. And he says it's okay to lead an unconventional lifestyle. We all don't have to fit in. What a lovely message. I think I'm going to leave it at that. So if these details connect for you, please reach out, because I would love to know. I would love to hear your story and learn more about your dad as well. Thank you. Book a medium reading with me. If you have a past loved one you would like to connect with, a spirit reading can be an amazing and never spooky experience. I strive to give you specific details that align only to you and your loved ones. Curious? Visit italktoghosts.com for links to book with me. I can't wait to meet you. And with that, dear listener, we've reached the end of this episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I hope you've enjoyed these creepy college ghost stories that I shared with you this evening. Did you ever have a paranormal experience happen to you while you were at college? I would love to hear about it. In the meantime, wherever you wander off to, in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.